Welcome to Confessions, where I share shit I used to do that I now know was survival. Today I want to talk to you about the day my stepdad told me he was cheating on my mom, because that was the day I started picking my feet until they bled, and I didn't stop for years. There's a lot of things I can say about my stepdad, but I'm only going to say three. He was really abusive, he was mentally unstable, and he was a lot younger than my mom. When they first met, I was 14. He is the same age as my husband, and my husband is 8 years older than me. So when I was 14 and they met, he was 22. Still really young to be the dad to a 14-year-old. I lived in Germany, but I moved out when I was 16 and got pregnant. A few years later, I met my husband, we got married, moved to the US, and I cut contact with both my stepdad and my mom. Years later, he went to visit my uncle, and during that time, he asked me to come see my child. Against better judgment, I agreed. So we picked him up from the airport, and that night we sat in the living room and talked. I remember very vividly that I was sitting on the floor, picking at a scab on my heel. He casually told me that he had met this woman, fell in love with her, was going to leave my mom, something about her ex being in prison, and then basically told me, I'm cheating on your mom, but you can't tell her. That was the first time I remember hurting myself as an adult by pulling that scab away. But it didn't start small, and it also didn't stay there, because throughout that conversation, I just kept digging at that wound. I dug and picked at it until my heel was bleeding. It was so bad I was limping for a few days and I had to wear socks. The version of me today knows that my behavior falls under something we call obsessive compulsive disorder. But back then I didn't notice, and I wouldn't know for years. I think I avoided pedicures and the beach and sand and everything that requires you to take your socks or your shoes off for 4 or 5 years. Because if you have multiple layers of skin that are in various stages of healing, that looks really gross, especially if you add the component of water to that. I remember that some days I had a really hard time walking, and I would tell lies about why. One time I said I stepped into a nail, the next I said I had an ingrown toenail. Anyway, I haven't picked since 2019, so 6 years now. And because I know that you're nosy, I'll tell you how I stopped. Two things happened at the same time. I got my nails done, and I discovered a video on somatic tracking on this very app. Somatic tracking is basically just noticing sensations in your body. But that video popped in my head a few weeks later during a picking session. I tried to figure out what sensation I was feeling in my body, but all that I could come up with was that I was feeling relief. Because I only ever use my real nails to pick at my skin, the acrylics actually helped me prevent picking. So for a few months, I went without doing it. But I still had this intense sensation to pick at my feet all the time that I needed an outlet for. So what I decided to do is keeping a spreadsheet every single time I thought about picking my feet. At first, I only ever noted that I was feeling like picking. I kind of started to track the urge. The more I started paying attention, the more I recognized. And the more I recognized, the more I was able to track. So I started tracking what I was feeling, what room I was in, what I was doing beforehand, and started to make commentary on what I thought triggered it. I didn't understand that what I was doing was self-harm for the first 6 to 9 months of tracking my behavior. As my curiosity grew, I became more open to go digging down that road and follow that rabbit hole. So I took my nails off and just started watching what happens. And sure enough, very close thereafter, I caught myself picking again. At first, it was after the fact. I didn't realize that I was doing it right away, but still I wrote it down in my spreadsheet. And the more I wrote down that I had realized I was doing the picking after the fact, the more I started recognizing it sooner and sooner. Eventually got to a point where I knew I was going to pick. My brain told me you are going to pick your feet, and I would do it. The action would come. And there was nothing I could do to stop it. Because I couldn't stop it, I felt what I thought was shame, which led me down the road of trying to identify and understand what shame even is. It made me realize that I had the emotional maturity of a dead desert plant. I couldn't even name a simple emotion, which led me down this path of trying to learn. As I was unpacking my behavior, the deeper lesson crystallized. I was trying to dig shame out of my body like it was a physical splinter. But I also understood that I was harming myself because I was ashamed of myself. The only way out of the behavior, the only way to stop the behavior was to feel the shame, to allow the shame, which is how I went from bloody socks to writing a whole field guide on emotional intelligence and breaking harmful patterns. I didn't just heal myself, I documented my process into what now has become what I call the Atlas of Emotions. It's not a book that you read from cover to cover. It's something that lives in your phone or on your desk for the moments that you need somebody, anyone, to show up and show you what to do. I wrote it because I needed that and I didn't have anybody doing that for me. It drops in August, and if you want a sneak peek because maybe you also have harmful patterns to unlearn and unpack, comment Atlas and I'll send you a sneak peek.